All right, welcome to another episode of Cocktails and Criticism. Tonight's cocktail is a Long Island iced tea. Basically, a Long Island iced tea is where you throw the kitchen sink into a glass, top it off with some cola, and then you drink it. It is made to get yourself a little inebriated, to have fun, have a good time. And I thought that this would pair quite nicely with tonight's subject matter, which is Bon Jovi's new album, Forever. I forgot what the name of it was. Here's a fun fact. If you follow me on TikTok, Bargain Basement Baudelaire on TikTok, I basically make drinks. Sometimes I mess up on the drinks, but I don't want to just like throw the drink out, so I'll drink them. So sometimes I've had 3 or 4 by the time I finish the video, and that's similar to what's been going on tonight. So, got a little buzz going. However, I feel like a buzz is a good thing when you're talking about Bon Jovi. Now, here's some... I'm not going to talk about I'm not playing any of the music because I have been dinged a couple of times for copyright things on YouTube. So for now, I'm avoiding playing any music, even in the background. One time I was playing music in the background and I got dinged for copyright and they pulled the video. I don't blame them. I mean, I'm not complaining, but that's why you're not going to hear any music in the background. I am a back-end Gen Xer, meaning that Gen X goes from about 1965 to about 1980. I come at the last 5 years of that. So I'm a 75 to 80 Gen Xer. And I'm more in the middle. You know, I'm not going to say exactly when, but I will say that I was already well into my school years when Slippery When Wet came out. I was in double digit age when Slippery When Wet was released. And Bon Jovi was the first band that I really obsessed about. I don't know what it was about the songs on that record and I don't know what it is about music at all. I tend to not look down, even if I don't like the kind of music that you like, I don't tend to look down on that because I don't know what the mechanism in our brain is that causes us to connect with certain songs or certain artists or certain musicians. There is some weird thing that we connect to. Even within the same genre, you might not like a certain singer or certain band, but you might like this band. When I was in high school, that was when grunge was breaking. And I didn't really really get into it. I mean, I had all the albums, I had everything that Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and I had, Mudhoney and I had all of that stuff, I liked it all. Some of them I liked more than others. I happened to, when Bon Jovi released Slippery When Wet, I was already a pretty big Motley Crue and a pretty big Van Halen fan. And I don't know what it was about Bon Jovi in particular that made me gravitate towards them and not like really continue to gravitate towards like Motley Crue or Rat or Dokken. And I liked all of those guys. I liked all those bands. I was a huge Alita Ford fan as well. But anyway, so I was obsessed with Bon Jovi. I had Slippery When Wet, and then subsequently I started to try to get everything of theirs I could get my hands on. So I got the first album. I got the 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, and then luckily a couple of years later they threw out New Jersey. I believe I even had a couple of the cassette singles from New Jersey. I'd buy that stuff with my allowance. And around the time New Jersey came out was sort of the time I was transitioning from like rock music to more of an underground and indie type of music. I had started to and I'll talk about this on another one. In Excess and U2 were sort of my transitional bands. So when Kick and Joshua Tree came out, I started to kind of drift away from the rock music. And I started to drift more into like what would be indie music. So by the very late 80s, 88, 89, 87, 88, 89, I was listening to more Depeche Mode and The Cure. But I had gotten into New Order, and then when you get into New Order, you either go straight into Joy Division, and then that takes you into like the goth realm, or you go into like a more electronic. I went both. I went Erasure and like all of that stuff, and then I also went like, I went deep into like goth, like Christian Death and Sisters of Mercy, and then I went deep, I was into like Front 242, but I was, like I said, also into Erasure and Kraftwerk and all that stuff. But anyway, I always came back to Bon Jovi. All of those other rock bands that I was really into, maybe with the exception of Rush, well, definitely with the exception of Rush. I always listen to Rush, and I always listen to Van Halen. But I mean, like like younger days, I dabbled with like Dio and Aldo Nova and Aerosmith and like even some of the more classic stuff like the Beatles. And the Beatles, kind of the Doors, those things came. But Bon Jovi, they were a constant, and every time they would release an album, I would check it out and I would get into it. Keep the Faith, I bought it, all of that stuff. I was really into it. So that's a little background. So I've always been a Bon Jovi fan. And by the way, another one that I was always into was Europe. I'm a huge Europe fan. I think Europe is fucking great. I always loved them, and I probably always will. But that's beside the point. And Bon Jovi actually got me into Skid Row because Skid Row opened for Bon Jovi on one of their tours. I would not have listened to Skid Row unless I knew that Bon Jovi like endorsed them. That's how powerful John Bon Jovi was to me. Lita Ford toured with him. That is why I continue to listen to Lita Ford to this day. I mean, granted, she's a fucking kick-ass guitarist. She puts on a kick-ass show. She's a great rock and roller. I love her. So Bon Jovi put out this album. If you have not watched the Hulu documentary about Bon Jovi, I highly, highly recommend you do. If you're a Bon Jovi, or even if you are a modicum of a fan of Bon Jovi's music, even a little bit. But I love this record. I think it's one of his best records. Granted, it is not a Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora record. I have some strong feelings about that. I never got a chance to see Bon Jovi with Richie Sambora. The tour that he left was the only tour that I actually ever was able to see them. And I believe that he left the tour like 3 or 4 shows prior to the one I got to see them in. I think that is one of the neglected songwriting teams in rock and roll. And they wrote great pop rock songs. But this record, I mean, they had The Circle, they had all of these, the country album. I was not a fan, Bon Jovi. I was not a fan, John. It was good, but it lacked something. What the one that you had before this one, This House Is, whatever that one was, it was decent. I, being a fan, don't think Bon Jovi's released a bad record, per se. They did get into a couple of records where I call it the Rolling Stones syndrome, where it's like you really wrote 2 or 3 songs and then you threw out a bunch of filler to fill up an album. You will see in the next couple of episodes, my favorite band is Depeche Mode. I feel like Depeche Mode has even copped the Rolling Stones syndrome. This album is, it starts with Legendary. I believe that's the single. I've listened to this twice, so not an expert. I'm just going to give you my thoughts about it. The flow is it's a really good flow. My favorite song happens to be towards the end, the second to last song, which is My First Guitar. John Bon Jovi was on Howard Stern, and he talks about this on Howard Stern. It is just, I don't know if it's just that I'm old now, and this kind of nostalgia kind of gets me, but this is a great song. It's all about his first guitar. And me not being a songwriter and not being a musician, but I do write. I definitely, and I am nostalgic. I collect things, but I'm what I think you would call a nostalgia collector, because I only want stuff that I had when I was a kid or really wanted as a kid and I don't have anymore. That's what I really seek out. Like, I collect comic books, but I'm not going after like ones that I've never had before, or ones that were really published before I was born. Like, there might have been a couple that were released sometime when I was like 7 or 8 that I might have seen at the drugstore that I never picked up, and that I always wanted. That part of me really connected with My First Guitar. I think Tico Torres is an underrated drummer. I think the drumming, I think that the musicianship on this album is I don't know if it's production, but it sounds better than the last couple of albums. It's almost like they've had some sort of rejuvenation in their songwriting. Another favorite of mine is, I think the first 3 or 4 songs on the record are great. We Made It Look Easy is the second song. Living Proof is the third song. And the fourth song is Waves. I mean, like I said, there's a good kind of flow and a good, feels like a great it feels like you're listening to a great record. The last thing I'm going to say about this, and I'm already getting on to 15 minutes. Do I wish I'd bought it on vinyl? I love vinyl. Yes, I do. I ordered it on CD. I got the autograph from John Bon Jovi with this. I know you could have got it on the vinyl. I just wanted to listen to it in the car. I still have a car that has a CD player. I'm one of those people. So I just wanted to hear it in the car. Oh, I know I could have downloaded it. I like physical media. There's one thing you're going to learn about me through these series of I guess thought, explosions, is that I prefer physical media. I do download from Apple. I stream from Spotify once in a while, but I only really do Spotify for podcasts. Is really all I do. Preferably my music, I want to pay for it. And if you are a fan of music, I think you should too. I like all of these little packages where you can kind of get an autograph and stuff like that. I know like Taylor Swift does that. Full on confession, I was old enough to have like crushes on girls in the 80s. So like I said, I was getting, I was in the double digits in the mid to late 80s. And I kind of thought Tiffany and Debbie Gibson were pretty good looking. So I also ordered an autograph from Tiffany. Looking forward to some. She released an update of Think We're Alone Now. That was great. If you're interested. But anyway, it's more about Bon Jovi. If you have the opportunity to check this album out, I highly recommend. I don't have a like scale, like a 1 to 10 scale. Is this better than Slippery When Wet and New Jersey? No, it is not. I would say that those are probably the best records that they did. Keep the Faith is pretty good. The one with It's My Life, there were Surgent's record. That was a good record. Is this better than that one? No, it's not better than that one. That's a Richie Sambora record, and that is I believe a better record. But call me a purist. I love Bon Jovi with Sambora. I think that they're just a better band with Richie Sambora. But this is better than the stuff that they've... Not to say that the stuff that they put out before this was crap, because it was not. Again, I'm a fan of Bon Jovi, so I am not going to, like, nitpick. And if you saw my last one, you know that that's not what I do on this channel. I talk about the things that give me joy. I talk about the things that I really like, and I don't talk about things that disappoint me or things that I don't like. So nothing that Bon Jovi has ever done has disappointed me. This is far from a disappointment. This is in 2024, I have not listened to a lot of new records, new releases. I believe I've only listened to a handful. This is one of my favorite records of 2024 so far. That list comes out in December, though. That'll be December. I would definitely say that this is better than the first and the second album, obviously. So if you are a Bon Jovi fan, or even a modicum of a Bon Jovi fan, I would definitely say at least give this a stream. I think it's a great record. So until next time, I am out, and I hope that you too find the things that give you joy Pay more attention to that stuff. Even when you're scrolling through your social media, find the people who have joy. Keep the joy in your life. Do the things that give you joy. And don't worry about all of the periphery nonsense. One thing you won't ever find on this channel is me talking about shit that I hate, politics, or I'm not going to bash anything or anyone, because that's not what I'm here for. Hopefully you're here for it with me. Until next time, cheers. This is the last bit of my cocktail. Should I chug it? Arrivederci.